Greetings and welcome to another River Radio Sports Central podcast powered by our friends at NovaCare Rehabilitation. Alongside Matt Varney from 103.5 ESPN, I'm Darren Kennard. We're kind of in the holiday spirit here with the wardrobe. We are quickly approaching Christmas, and of course that means basketball season's really into full swing. Holiday tournaments are upon us, but we're still talking some football.
Amazing. Right before we turned on the mics, I said it's amazing that we've been in our third or fourth basketball season podcast, and we keep being like, next time it's going to be all basketball. And then something happens some way, somehow, and here we are talking football once again.
Yeah, we were recording on Friday morning, and last night the news came out after the Christopher board meeting that the new Bearcats head coach would be somebody who's certainly not new to Christopher or the Black Diamond. Mike Rood is the new Bearcats head coach. Coach Rood has been at Johnston City. He's been at Vienna Goreville. He's been at Cesar, and now he wraps it up in a full circle moment. He goes back to his alma mater in all likelihood to close out his career as the head coach of the Bearcats.
Yeah, and I mean, if you've talked to Coach Rood at any point in the past 30, 40 years now, you know that this has kind of been something of a desire of his. He didn't know if it would ever happen, but good for him to be able to. It's going to be an uphill climb, but that's something that he already knows. Haven't seen them several times in the past 15 years or so now. He knows how big of a challenge this is going to be, but if there's anyone I would choose, it would be him to try to revive that program.
And this is something that, again, when you've coached 50-plus years, you've seen a lot, and he's been in the position of building programs.
Yep.
He's done it at Vienna Goreville, and he also did it at Northland College for a few years, and he's also been in rebuilding projects. So this is a guy that understands the level of work that has to be done and what it takes to get to that level that's, it has been truly a struggle for CZR.
Right, and in the story that you posted, you did acknowledge that. He said, that the big thing is just get it on the right track and then hand it off to someone that can hopefully do some good things with it. And so it's going to be both a building the program, but also building his successor, whoever that may end up being. He wants to make sure that when he leaves, he hands the keys to someone that he trusts and not just someone that, all right, it was fun. However many years he ends up doing this, it was fun, and now I'm going to say, see you later. I ticked it off the bucket list type of deal. It's something that is near and dear to his heart that he wants to make sure whenever he decides, okay, this is seriously it, he can trust that Christopher is in good hands.
Right. It's not just going to fall off the table just because he steps away. Now, I'm set up to talk to Coach Rood a little bit later this afternoon, and I'll be interested to get his feelings, because when I talked to him late in the season, this was certainly not the plan, because he was going to step away from Cesar, and the plan was to go over closer to St. Louis to where he's got family, and he and his wife be closer to their grandkids, and not to be a head coach, but to still he's a football coach. I mean, when you do that for so long, it's in your blood. And then this opportunity came along, and again, an opportunity to go full circle was too good to pass up for him.
Exactly, and his family probably understands. I would hope they would understand. But it's definitely another sacrifice, man. That's the life you sign up for when you marry a head coach, when you end up born into the family of a head coach. Maybe you didn't sign up for it, but that's the life that you have. And so things turn on a dime for head coaches all the time. And again, it's a situation he probably didn't think was going to happen. And then it opened up, and he said, well, what better time,
Right.
And so things turn, and again, however many years it's going to be, I don't expect it'll be too long of a time before he says, all right, I got to go. But he's going to try his best. Maybe they can get their first winning season in 2 decades. Maybe they can get to the postseason for the first time. And while he's there, who knows? Not first time, but first time since 2008. A lot of things that they could potentially do. We've seen him turn things around very quickly for programs, but there's a lot of work to be done at CZR.
Well, and I think we've seen at Mount Vernon, where you've had a situation where the Rams had a stretch of, especially the 4 years prior to Dan Mings returning, where it was just really bad and numbers were down. The only number that wasn't down was the losses.
Right.
And, that's the way it's been at Christopher, and not to rub wounds for the Bearcats, but, that last playoff appearance was in 2008. Yeah. No winning season since. The only season that ended up non-losing was the COVID year that was shortened under Coach Hargrove. They finished 3-3. And so you have to go all the way back to 2002 under Coach John Kretz to find a season that ended in a winning season. The playoff year, they finished 5-5 after losing in the first round. So, and then, you're coming off back-to-back losing seasons. And in those 16 years since that last playoff appearance, this is a program that's only won 29 games.
Right, exactly. It's been rough. And, you talk about that Hargrove season. That, I believe, then after that season was the year that Coach Hargrove went to the next level to coach at the college, which is his right, absolutely. But it was one of those times where it was like, okay, finally, we're back on the right track. And then they just spiraled once again. And it just, for the Bearcats, they were like, every time we seem to be getting something right, something happens and sets us off course. And so Mike Rude's objective here is going to be that when I step away, hopefully it's not a set-off course type of moment here, and that's why he wants to mentor somebody to take over the job whenever it comes time.
Stability seems to be the word, and because this is a program that Rude will be the fourth coach in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And I joked with him when I talked to him on the phone last night, is like, well, 3 years ago they went with the youngest coach in the state, and because he had made the comment about being 77 and can't believe there's going to be anybody older as a head coach.
Right,
and so they've gone extremes here. And again, I the most interesting thing just talking to him last night was, not only, helping turn the program around, but developing that coaching staff and mentoring them so that, as you were discussing, just the fact that, it's something that's sustainable down the road, even when he decides to ride off into the sunset.
Right. And, I mean, even if the Bearcats are a 3-win team, let's say, next year, they're going to be a competitive 3-win team because we know how Mike Rude does things. And it might take a while to circle the wagons for this program just for the instability and the lack of success that they've had. But we see what a coach like Mike Rude can do immediately for programs. We've seen it in the past couple of years, like you mentioned with Dan Mings going back to Mount Vernon. He steps in. I wouldn't be surprised if they pick up a couple wins for their first time in a couple seasons here.
Right.
And they might not be knocking on the door for the playoffs just yet, but they'll be competitive, and it just makes the Diamond that much more competitive. He was at Cesar, and John Shadow and him were sharing the power. Now you break that up a little bit, and he's back in it, and it'll just make the Diamond more competitive.
No question. And the Diamond's always kind of been a three-tiered league. You have three teams that are definitely the top, and then there's been a middle three and then a bottom three. And so you figure you can come in and at least just the coaching and maybe schemes can help turn the tide and get a couple 2-3 wins, and then maybe you get some confidence and who knows what's down the road there.
Right. Well, and with them being at that kind of bottom tier for the Diamond, even if they remain in that bottom tier, if they're competitive, it just makes the Diamond deeper, which is what this helps the conference. I'm sure the kids at Cesar right now are a little frustrated with the situation, which it's their right to, without a doubt. But in the long run, this will make the Diamond deeper, which is really good for the conference.
Week 5 next year, Rivals Week in the Diamond is going to be super spicy. I have a strong suspicion.
Yes.
And lo and behold, those two teams play each other tonight in basketball.
How about it?
So just the timing is, for us, the timing is great. For those involved, it may not be, but it might be spicy tonight.
I wouldn't be surprised one bit. We were talking with a couple people before we started talking here today, and just the fact that, some people are expecting him to be there at that game, and just the Cesar side, they might break some things out that they haven't in a while and stuff. So we won't spoil that. Go to the game to see what happens. But definitely that rivalry has already taken a notch up from what we've heard.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, it's one of those rivalries where it doesn't matter whether it's checkers or whether it's football or volleyball, whatever. I mean, it is a stout rivalry, and now we've just thrown maybe a 55-gallon drum of petro on that for at least football for sure. So that takes us a nice smooth transition into basketball. We are winding things down here before Christmas. The Conrad Allen, one of the holiday tournaments that's already underway. Edwards County already clinched a spot in the finals. The other spot will be up for grabs tonight with North Clay and Wayne City battling. And then we've got a lot of big games on the agenda tonight.
Yeah.
Conference showdowns abound, and the game you've got, you've got unbeaten Murfreesboro hosting Red Hot Heron, who's 7-1, and that's going to be a dandy here.
Yeah, without a doubt. The one loss that Heron has, of course, went to Sparta, and I think that one made people question how good is Heron really, because a week and a half beforehand they were being like, oh my God, Heron's amazing. They beat Collinsville at Collinsville. But I think it's definitely going to be a game that we find out just how good these two teams are and who they are if they don't know already. It'll be a great game without a doubt. It'll come down to, because Murfreesboro's been running maybe 6.5 guys out there for the most part in their 6 games. You're going to find out how deep does that well go for Murfreesboro, because Heron's got a good deep team. And so we'll see. It should be a really good game, though, probably down to the wire, which those two teams almost always go down to the wire.
Right. And the other thing is that the matchup, the game within the game is both teams with great guards. And that, again, you mentioned game going down to the wire. Guards usually make the difference, but you can't look and go, well, this team has an overwhelming advantage over this team. I mean, Jared Staple's been a huge addition for Heron to go with Kyrie Slukins, and so those guys have been great. But then Cade Brooks is off to an unbelievable start for Murfreesboro, and I mean, this is you're going to have the best seat in the house for a really good one in that, I think.
Brooks has already made 23s in 6 games, just to give you an idea of how good he is. He is off to a potentially historic season for the Murfreesboro Red Devils. But the key, in my mind, I go back to a few years ago. A.J. Walker was with Murfreesboro back then, and he makes probably about a 8-foot jump shot over Jonathan Harrison, who was just a sophomore at the time. It was a 27-26 game that went down to the wire, and Murfreesboro comes out on top. Similar, maybe not that type of ending, maybe not that type of score, but the key to the game might be how well does Kenyon Hale from Murfreesboro plays tonight. He had 24 against Meridian. He has been out to a great start and then broke down last Saturday. He might control the game tonight, or if Heron shuts him down, that might be their key to victory. I'll be interested to see how that kind of aspect of the game plays it, because he's one of those. He's 6'6", so when you get to the next level, he may not be a true big at 6'6", but at high school level, he's a true big. And when you have a true big on your team at this level, changes everything. So if Heron can neutralize him, that might be all they need to do.
And just down the road, just east on 13, you got Marion and Carbondale. And Marion's been rolling.
Yep.
Carbondale is off to a good start. They lost at Heron the other night, and after going 2-0 at the get down last weekend. And the Terriers are very young, but again, rivalry games, the old adage, you can throw the records out the window. And I mean, in this case, both are pretty good. So, again, Marion would figure to be the favorite, just the way they're playing and the experience level. But good grief, we've seen some barn burners between these two throughout the years.
Yeah, well, and also it is at Carbondale. So you got to take that a little bit into a factor that, it's not a 2-hour bus ride, but at the same time, it is, you just get to stay at school, work on your jump shot if you want, grab some dinner, and then come on back and play for Jim Miller. It's not as much of a jump on the bus, okay, we'll be there in 30 minutes type of deal as we go down Route 13. But nonetheless, I mean, Carbondale is explosive, if nothing else. Definitely feel like Marion maybe be a little bit more organized, but when Carbondale is on fire, they're maybe the best team in the area.
Yeah, they're defensively is where they, I was listening to Brent Jackson talk, in some of their, pregame stuff with Coach Mike Butler about the fact that this is a team that the offense is going to come and go, being a young team. Defense is where they've got to hang their hat. And, the flip side of that is offensively you can't have a bunch of turnovers because you're going to give Marion runouts and doesn't give your defense a chance. So I think it's a very interesting early season matchup.
And also listening to the post game the other night with Jim Miller, Coach Jim Miller, he is not afraid to shoot his shots at his own players and let them know basically if he's saying it on the radio. He's telling his kids, and he mentioned that he couldn't trust some of his kids down on the bench. Now that might pose a problem tonight, but that could also light a fire under those guys a little bit. And you might see a bench guy that didn't see much time the other night playing against Heron, might have that fire in him, and all of a sudden there's an 8th or 9th guy that Marion wasn't really planning for that now they have to contend with.
Yeah, and Carbondale was down just 2 going into the 4th at Heron, got outscored 13-2 down the stretch, and ended up losing by 13. One of the other big conference games tonight is a battle in the Midland Trail with Woodlawn traveling to Waltonville, and it's another one where it doesn't matter what sport it is. These two just don't really care much for each other. There's not going to be many recipes or Christmas cards exchanged tonight. Waltonville's off to a tremendous start. Woodlawn got off to a really good start.
Yeah.
They hit a little bump in the road Tuesday night, losing at home to South Central, and obviously that's a team that I have a little familiarity with, or at least the program. Not that that's a terrible loss in any way, but when you look at it, that really screams a trap game. When you've got a home game Tuesday night before you're scheduled to go to Waltonville, who's unbeaten and state ranked, and and we're talking kids. It's
exactly.
Hey, we can take. We're playing really well. We got South Central. I'm looking at Waltonville.
Yeah.
And again, so now they get Waltonville tonight, and I'm interested to see really, because Woodlawn's kind of been a mystery to me. I mean, they played Carlisle within 5 at the Kaskaskian, and then Carlisle's unbeaten and in the top, one of the top seeds at Pinckneyville. So they got my attention there.
Right.
And so I'll be interested to see how things pan out tonight.
Right, without a doubt. When you talk about trap games, when you talk to a football coach and they say, we can't believe in trap games, I can buy into that a little bit because of the fact that, you got a week in between games, there's no reason why your focus should be a week and a half away. But in basketball, when you got games sometimes 12 hours apart, if not less even sometimes in tournaments, sometimes it is easy to fall into a trap game mentality. And so that happens. They played them close, and, you take from that what you can. But tonight's game, Waltonville has just been fantastic, as you mentioned, state ranked. And Woodlawn is the best that we've seen from them in a couple years, honestly, ever since Brian Gomber left, really. They've been trying to figure it out, and now all of a sudden with Luke Cooper, things are starting to turn the right direction for them. If Woodlawn pulls off an upset, because it would be an upset over Waltonville, they pull off an upset, that is the kind of, they've had some turning points, that would be the big turning point for the program.
That'd be a springboard for sure.
Exactly, and now all of a sudden everyone's looking at them and saying, well, all right, now we got to take you seriously, and now we got to, expect you to be doing even better in the next year or so. So it'd be a big moment for them, without a doubt, to be able to defeat Waltonville tonight. But Waltonville, they're so good, and Gage Peterson and the crew just they come ready every single game. It's tough to go against them, really.
Well, they've got size, they've got really good guard play, and they can shoot the ball from 3. And Peterson, from the games that we've covered, has really expanded his game. I mean, this is a guy that at 6'5", you mentioned Kemion Hale being a post player. Well, he's been a post player, and that's been his first 2 years. Well, this is a guy that knows that for me to play at the next level, I've got to be able to step outside and hit shots, and he's doing that enough that, hey, you've got to respect it. You can't just let the big man go and I'm going to sag back in the lane.
Right.
You got to contest him.
Yeah, stretch forwards are just so tough to guard, especially at this level. You see one out there, and you're just like, you're a unicorn right now. And
right.
Now, of course, when you go to the next level, and then you're standing at 6'5", 6'6", and you're a dime a dozen. But right now, they're very difficult to deal with, especially when you might have a guy that is 5'11". You see guys that go out there, they're 5'11", and they're considered their big man for their team.
Right.
And they look up and they're like, this guy's 6'5", and I don't know where he's going to shoot it from. So it helps a lot when you can be a stretch forward in high school basketball.
Versatility is a big deal, and you mentioned Woodlawn. If they were to pull off the upset tonight and putting themselves on the map, when we come back after Christmas, that's who Murphy opens up with at the Duster. And
that's
so,
correct.
This is and certainly they would be the underdog in that
Sure.
in that situation. But depending how they play Waltonville here, may give them some confidence on what they do that first round at the Duster.
Yeah, looking at the Duster, I can just say the past couple of weeks, my view of it has completely changed for Murfreesboro specifically, because I got the roster and I said, or not the roster, excuse me, the bracket, and I said, this is a nice path for Murfreesboro. They're going to have some bumps, but they could find themselves in the semifinals pretty easily, in my opinion. And then the Kaskaskia, because the Kaskaskian was happening at that time.
Right.
So then everything starts to happen, and you look around. Well, hold on a minute.
Right.
Carlisle just beat Pinckneyville. Woodlawn played Carlisle to a 5-point loss.
Right.
You start looking around. Uh-oh.
Right.
You like their chances to at least probably get a first-round win just because of just, talent.
School size.
And just how talent plays out in school size and whatnot. But now you can't overlook Woodlawn by any means. No. And then if you get past Woodlawn, then you got a monster in Carlisle who still, I think a lot of people don't know exactly what they're getting in Carlisle necessarily. And so all of a sudden a not easy path to the semifinals, but one that felt doable all of a sudden is like, we got two big mountain walls to climb right now.
Right. And, and that's the thing is that, and I've heard the rumbling about brackets and this, that, and the other. And at the end of the day, the home team, you can take some criticism for the way the bracket's set up or, the timing, whatever. Hey, start your own tournament.
Right.
And then you can set it up however you want. It's the same way that I've told you many times when people complain about your polls. First of all, it's not you voting.
Correct.
It's not even us voting. Yep. It's coaches voting, but that doesn't matter. But, look, here's the thing. You can complain about it all you want, or you can start your own poll, and you can run the poll any way you want to.
That's correct.
And the same way I feel like for tournaments. And I'm not advocating for more tournaments. Trust me, I am not advocating for more tournaments. But at the end of the day, you know what? I mean, because that's been a common – in Centralia, you can just go ahead and usually pencil the Orphans into the semifinals.
Right.
And I get it.
I do.
You're hosting the tournament, and, and especially when you're bringing in a bunch of teams from outside the area, it's probably a good thing if the home team is in the semifinals. Yeah. But at the same point, if you don't like it, one, leave, or two, start your own tournament, or both.
Well, and not to stay on the Duster, but, complain about it all you want, but Pinckneyville – gave themselves in their own bracket, mind you, the past two champion. Olney has won the past two championships, and Pinckneyville said, we'll take you in our own bracket. And it wasn't like we don't want to see Ben, we don't want to see Murfreesboro or anything like that. We don't want to see Carl. That wasn't why they did it. It was just, I talked to Matt Lauer about it, and he said, we don't seed it. We take top 6 teams, and we say 3 you go over there, 3 you go over here. And again, it's their own tournament. Gosh darn it, they're going to get the night game.
Well, and Olney has struggled to start because
yes, that's right.
Rex Hallam has been hurt. He tore his ACL last year. He just came back this week and came back at first game against Salem with 15.
That's right.
And so now you take a big team with Toman in the middle, who's being recruited for his offensive line skills by big time programs. You got a monster in the middle, and now you take a 6'5" dude and add them to the mix that certainly is a double digit guy. Yeah. So they will look a lot different, and then kind of lost in all this shuffle is we talk about Carlisle, we talk about Benton, we talk about Murphy, and Pinckney, rightfully so. You know who else is in that bottom bracket? The Meridian Bobcats, who are not scared of anybody.
No. Well, and Murfreesboro played Meridian last week at Carbondale's event, and they lost to Murfreesboro by 11 points, I believe it was.
Yeah.
That was their second game of the day.
Right.
They lost by 11 and they're a much smaller school compared to Murfreesboro.
Right.
Meridian probably sitting there saying, we want another chance. Give us another chance, and let's see how it goes again when we both haven't played a game that day.
Right. Well, and again, the way the Duster's set up, you have the single game on, and it'll be on Friday. They're taking the day after Christmas off, so they're going to have a single game Friday, and then there's a double session on Saturday.
Correct.
And so then that's going to set up Trophy Day on Monday. From a selfish perspective, I enjoy the fact that the championship games are on Monday and it's spread out. Because my first thought was when I saw Christmas was on a Wednesday, it was like every one of these tournaments is going to play Thursday through Saturday. Yep. So we have the championship games on a Saturday night, great gate, all this and that. And so now, my first thought was, why would you do that? And then it's like, well, you're one of the few games in town. So you may have a full gym just because, there aren't other options that would take people's attention.
And they normally would anyways, but now it's going to be even more packed. And Carbondale's in the Collinsville one, and they are doing it 3 days straight, but they're doing it 27, 28, 29. So their championship game is going to be on Sunday, but a lot of them are doing 26, 27, 28, and that'll be a little exhausting for folks like us one way or another. But, that's how a lot of these things go also. So we kind of expect it. But for the Duster, everybody says thank you. We get a nice little Monday night or Monday afternoon, because there's going to be games going on at 9 a.m. also. So wherever it falls, everyone says thank you. We get a little bit of a breather, and then a little bit more basketball.
Right. And, the Cesar-Valere Holiday Tournament used to be a 4-day when it was a 16-team event. Then, that fourth day was all trophy games. And so now being 8 teams, it's condensed into 3 days. That's one that the top 2 seeds are Goreville and Waltonville. And I don't think anybody outside of the 6 other teams would be disappointed to see Goreville and Waltonville in that championship game.
Right, exactly. And, I mean, I've talking with Cesar people, as we have been plenty the past 24 hours. But the Cesar folks also, Cesar's been playing a little bit better right now, and they're starting to say, why not? Why can't we beat
There
Waltonville?
are potholes for each one of those teams to get to the championship game.
Exactly.
It's not like you can just go ahead, all right, it's going to be.
It looks like that potentially will happen, but there's going to be walls that have to be climbed, without a doubt. And for Waltonville, Cesar, the way that they've been playing, again, 3-win Cesar, but they've been playing well in all their losses for the most part. I think there might be one bad loss on their schedule. Everything else has been close up until about the fourth quarter, and they've recently started to figure things out. It won't be a cakewalk by any means for Waltonville in the first round.
Well, and that's the thing is where this tournament is different going to 8 teams than 16 is, that first day when it was a 16, the top seed had a cakewalk. It was usually 28-2 after one quarter, and really there were only a couple of competitive games in that first round. Well, now there are no gimmies necessarily, and so somebody like a DuQuoin who's not seeded very well, and their record's not great, but they certainly have a much different level of competition that they've played. They're a team that all of a sudden, if you're not ready, and again, you're talking about the day after Christmas, immediately after it, it's not the 9 a.m. after Christmas or the 8:30 special over at El Dorado, but it is the day after Christmas. If you're not locked in, you might be headed to the left side of the bracket.
That's right. Well, and not just locked in on that day, but locked in on Christmas, because a lot of these coaches are going to say, 2 p.m. practice, guys, be there, and then you can go home and have dinner with your family.
Right.
So, you got to be locked in all next week to be prepared just for your first round matchup that happens on Thursday. And then if you get lucky to win that game, then you get the grace of going to the second round, which for a lot of these tournaments will be the semifinal. But still, it's not going to be an easy week by any means. Christmas falling in the middle of the week made it very difficult, not just for the media folks. It made it difficult for the coaches, for the players, for the parents. It made it difficult for everybody.
Well, school is, some classes are out today, get out today. I don't think anybody goes back, Monday.
I don't think so.
And it's an opportunity, okay, well, we're going to take these 10 days, and then it's like, well, do we really want to come back to school on the 2nd, which is a Thursday? Let's just go ahead and wait to come back till Monday. But we mentioned El Dorado, Hare in the top seed, they have had a ton of success over at the EHT. Certainly not the same Heron team that has won those games. Some of the we touched on it earlier about Jared Staple Jr. Adding things to the Tigers, but Kyrese Lukens is a guy that has had just a boatload of success at the EHT and have been a part of the 3 championships, and what a potential there to be a 4-time, and I'd have to go back and look, and I don't know that there's been 3 times. Harrisburg had a great run. Guys like Bahari Amaya and that group that but I don't remember. And again, I'll have to do the old crack research staff of four times and one dude being a part of all 4.
Right, exactly. Well, Kyrese, I don't know that anyone has in his 4 years figured out how to crack down on him and make him stop, even in the postseason. I don't think there's been a single game where I've seen – there's been times where he's let off the gas and said, I'm going to let my teammate help.
Sure.
It certainly helped that in the 3 of his 4 years he had Jonathan Harrison and Xavier Williams to go alongside him. But I have not seen a single game in his 3.5 years where a team figured out this is how we're going to stop him. And that's why he's been so good. So I expect another deep run, if not another championship for Heron and Kyrese to be the main reason. Now, they're going to have some problems going there, obviously. I mean, Harrisburg looks like a big threat.
Right.
Massac County is seeded, although they're a little down. But, that might be just the fuel that they need to go off. And then on the other side, Carterville's waiting for you. And they're just fundamentally sound usually.
Well, and it's a river-to-river Ohio conference tournament for the most part. Outside of Murfreesboro, you've got those 4 teams are 4 of the top 5 seeds. Heron's 1, Carterville's 2. Yeah. Vienna gets the 3rd seed, and then you've got Harrisburg and Massac County as 4-5. So Heron is basically going to have to run the conference gauntlet.
Probably.
And then you might see Carterville in the finals potentially. But, again, there's a lot of – and we talked about the home team, and this is another situation. El Dorado always plays that 7 o'clock game on the opening night, and that's the way it is. And El Dorado's not seeded this year, and so they seed 1 through 8, and then the other 8 are kind of hodgepodged in there. And El Dorado's not going to take somebody that they know they're going to get the doors blown off.
Right. Yeah.
And people might get upset at that, but again, I say, go start your own tournament.
Exactly.
And look, it's not great, but when you choose to go to their place, you kind of got to play by their rules. Yeah. And they're opening with Carmi, who's a conference foe. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting twist. But again, in that bottom bracket, you've got Carterville, the 2 seed, and Vienna, the 3 seed. I don't know what to think about Vienna. They looked great at home, in the Classic, and then Nashville goes down there and pounds them by 20, and then they're kind of in between here, and so this is a team that I think could be really dangerous in a tournament setting.
I agree completely. No Owen Treat this year, but they still got. I was over there giving them their Team of the Week stuff yesterday, and there's someone I recognize. There's another one they got a lot of returners, and so new head coach in Berlin Brower, but that hasn't stopped him one bit.
That's a Hall of Fame head coach in Kentucky, so I mean, it's not like you're getting some.
Yeah, well, you go from one Kentucky Hall of Famer to another Kentucky Hall of Famer. So, but they'll be an interesting team to watch. Another one that I expect to make a deep run without a doubt. But the great thing about these tournaments is that there's usually 1 or 2 trip-ups along the way somehow, so you never know what could happen. Speaking of trip-ups, this is something that Heron's used to, being the 1 seed at El Dorado in recent years, but that 8:30 game is tough. And it doesn't matter that you're playing Carrier Mills, who has had a rough season, but 8:30 in the morning?
Right. At El Dorado, which means you're going to have to be on the bus by 6:15, 6:30. And
goes back to the whole bus thing. And Carrier Mills has to make a slightly less long trip on the bus.
That would be the upset of the century.
It would be, without a doubt. But you know what? 8:30 a.m., kids have been up a little bit earlier than maybe they want to be the day after Christmas. It could be the perfect storm, but again, Heron's been there before, so I don't expect it.
And they've been there with the target on their back, so that's nothing new for them. The nightmare scenario, the one thing that is really hard about El Dorado in that we're going to stuff 26 games into 3 days is the fact that the loser of that 8:30 in the morning game has to come back and play the midnight special. So you've got breakfast at Wimbledon to start, and then you've got the midnight special to close it out, and that's a tough spot to be in. And
I've seen it happen for Heron before, is the thing.
And so it's that's an unenviable spot for the Carrier Mills Stone Fort Wildcats. And again, what I do love about El Dorado, and again, this is a personal soapbox, you lose twice, you're done.
That's right. Yeah. Double elimination.
There is none of this, we're going to have a 13th place bracket,
right,
or, you've got to win and not lose twice, or to get another game. And,
I appreciate that.
And I am all in on that.
Yeah.
I understand everybody wants the guaranteed 4 games and all this stuff, but look, I don't. There's nothing guaranteed. And here's the other deal. I understand the other side of it is if you're in that 13th place bracket, that may be the only game you win for a while,
right?
And so there's something to be said for that. But at the same point is I think that mentality, that's the AAU mentality that has crept in of, well, if we lose, it's okay. We've got another game.
Yeah. No.
And it's not we have to win to play another game.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a good mentality to have, and it'll help seep on into the rest of your season if you haven't had that mentality already of we got to win to see tomorrow, because guess what? That's how the state tournament is too. There's no 256th place game. It's you win or you're done,
right.
And it's the same. El Dorado's a little bit nicer, and they say, okay, you can lose 1, and then you're done. So, I can appreciate that. I think it's good. It's fun getting 4 games in, without a doubt. But you know what? To quote the kids, get good.
Right. And when we look at some of these other tournaments, obviously Mater Dei is a tournament that's, I think it's his 61st year coming up, and always a stout tournament. And Nashville and Oakville end up there. And, of course, the Centralia Holiday Tournament is one of the marquee events. And, you've got Centralia and Mount Vernon, and you've got a bunch of other good teams from outside of the area coming in. And, Mount Vernon opens up. And, again, this is one of those things. Hey, Mount Vernon, you're the rival. You're going to play the 8:30 game. And, oh, by the way, you're going to play Chatham-Glenwood, who just beat East St. Louis. And so, again, you don't like it, leave, which they did for a few years.
They did.
But, again, just gives you an idea of that's a first-round game. Mount Vernon and Glenwood, who potentially, is a super sectional type matchup.
Well, and it not like Mount Vernon hasn't shown that they can't. I understand Chatham-Glenwood is the next level, but it's not like they haven't shown that they can't compete.
Well, it's a stout 3A school.
Exactly.
And they just did something beating East St. Louis that, Mount Vernon or Centralia or whoever it is going to have to do to get out of the sectional.
Exactly.
In all likelihood.
Exactly. So you know what? You either play up in these tournaments or you play teams like that because you say, you know what? Like you said, we're going to have to do this anyways. If we want the season to continue, if we want it to end the way we want it to end, we're going to have to do it anyways. So while Centralia or the host may throw things at their rivals that is like, haha, deal with that, at the same time, those teams always say, well, we're going to have to do it anyways.
Right.
Might as well learn how to do it at this point in the season and not in, February, March.
Right. And you got all those boys tournaments, and there are 2 girls tournaments that are really have my eye, and the one is at Mascoutah, where Nashville and Oakville are both at.
Yeah.
Those are both 2 of the top ranked teams in the state in their classes. And oh, by the way, also in there is the defending 4A champs in O'Fallon and state ranked Alton in 4A. Bree Central, who's number 1 in 2A. And it's 12 teams this year instead of 16. So, those top 4 seeds get buys, but there are no gimmies in that tournament. Holy cow, it's loaded.
I had not seen the bracket for that one, but just you describing it to me, I'm going to have to find a way to be in 2 places at once, it sounds like.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is that, I've said many times that I need 4 or 5 of me, and that's so just pulling up the bracket again. I know that's exciting, but you've got Freeburg, Mater Dei, Oakville, Belleville East, Nashville, Bree Central, O'Fallon, and Alton. So those are your top 8 of the 12.
That is an amazing tournament right there.
Oakville's looking at a first-round game against the host Mascoutah team. So, again, Mascoutah's hosting, and they're like, who can we play? Oh, we're going to take the number 1 team in 1A because, maybe it's going to be the better option, which kind of gives you an idea of the options.
Yeah, which is a sign of a really good tournament right there. And, I mean, you're not going to get that, especially when you have teams coming back and signed up for contracts. It's not going to be like that every single year. You can't just build a tournament like this usually. But it's great on their part to have it. And if you're a girls basketball junkie, that's where you're going to want to be.
Well, and then the other one that the Rangerette Christmas Classic has just year after year just keeps getting better. The field is deep, and this year it is absolutely loaded. And when you look in the brackets, Mount Vernon, who's up to three in 3A, going to be the top seed. But you've got Mount Zion, Vienna, and Carbondale all in that top half of the bracket. That's just in the top half of the bracket. Civic Memorial, you got Harrisburg. And then the sleeper, I think, is, again, we talked about Carlisle's boys. Carlisle's girls are really good, too. If I'm not mistaken, they may be unbeaten, and it really just kind of shows the depth of that metro, the Nashville-ish area, the Clinton County, Washington County, because you got both Breeze teams are loaded. Nashville's unbelievable. And then Carlisle's like, hey, don't forget us.
Right,
we're pretty good too. And so those 4 teams are all in the top 10 in the state, and they're all probably going to be in this, they're going to be 2-2 in the subsectionals. But in this particular tournament, you've got Civic Memorial, who's a quality 3A team, Harrisburg, who's off to a great start, and then you've got Carlisle and Triad, another 3A team. Again, that's the top 8 seeds, and so that's going to be 3 days of great basketball in Benton.
Yeah, and those are some teams that we have not seen at that tournament in recent years. But like you said, it's gotten deeper, it's gotten better, and it makes for a fantastic tournament. You love to see it, especially at the girls' level, because the girls don't get as much love as they really do deserve. So when they're stacking their tournaments the way that we've just described at Mascoutah and at Benton, it makes it really tough to turn down one of those just to go see a boys' basketball game, which everybody wants to go see the boys. I get it. But, man, how do you turn down a tournament like that?
And in the good news, again, they have also gone with the 27, 28, and 30 schedule. So championship game, semis, and the championship game will be actually, I said that wrong. The semis will be Saturday, as they've gone double session on Saturday, just like it's very similar to the Duster setup. And then all the trophy games on Monday. So, and again, Vienna's unbeaten.
That's right.
And moving up the charts in 2A.
So good.
And they just beat Carbondale down at Massac, but that was a 5-point game in that tournament. That's a potential second-round game at Benton. So, again, I always talk about holiday tournaments is the gift that keeps on giving, and you open presents on Christmas Day, but then for basketball fans, those 3 to 5 days afterwards, just more presents. Give me more.
Yeah, exactly. It's fantastic. And then for us media folk, we also get to walk into the hospitality room and say, "What you got?
Give me more."
Exactly.
No, as you can tell from my svelte figure, and I always joke about the fact that I fast leading up to these tournaments, and that's not true, folks. Especially not what's waiting for us for Christmas feast. So, but that's going to do it for us. For Matty V, I'm Darren Kennard. We want to wish you and yours the merriest of Christmas and the happiest of holiday seasons. We will take a break a couple weeks because we're going to have a lot to do over the holidays. We'll probably come back here and have one after the first of the year that, that'll be what, the third or fourth or somewhere in there. Kind of have a holiday tournament recap, and there will be lots to chew on after that.
Well, and real quick, a preview of that show a little bit, because we'll obviously chew on that, but also there will be a couple big games to talk about that specific night.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, Heron Mount Vernon that night. So we'll probably have something to say about that game.
There will be plenty to talk about in the past, plenty to look ahead. But anyway, that is for another day in the future. Again, we wish you all the best here this holiday season. We'll talk to you here again in a bit. We want to thank our friends at NovaCare Rehabilitation for bringing you the River Radio Sports Central podcast. Take care. Have a great week.